All right, it is District Breakdown time, 658 Division One. I'm here with Professor Matt Diggs, our high school insider. Man, this district was wild last year. It was a race to the finish to get to all the four teams in there. It took down to week 11 to figure out who that last team was in. Man, is it going to be as crazy as it was last year as far as figuring out who's going to make the postseason, or do you have some favorites?
It might be even crazier. If all the districts, I made a tweet about this a couple of weeks ago, put 6-5A, maybe other than the number one team, in a blender and just try to figure it out. I mean, you could see something crazy like Frisco Lebanon Trail
Hmm.
ending up at second place in this district. You just never know with these Frisco ISD schools because there's such parity. You get so many move-ins. They have all very good sub-varsity programs. It is just a craziness. I've got some predictions. I've got some thoughts, but sometimes my thoughts don't always work out when it comes to Frisco ISD, and I have been more wrong. And last year, if you remember Frisco Wakeland, that they had some of the biggest head-scratching games over and over and over. They would lose a game to Sherman that they weren't supposed to lose, and then they would beat Frisco Lone Star, beat everybody else in the district, and then they would lose, to Frisco Reedy, and just all kinds of head scratching games when it comes to Frisco Wakeland. But they do got their quarterback Brennan Meyer coming back, and he's a very special player. Probably kind of an odds-on favorite to be the district MVP, preseason district MVP. So obviously he's a special player. They've got their running backs, Cooper Snyder coming back, Chase Cragen, the really talented wide receiver, is coming back, and they've got a very special offensive lineman, Andrew Kirkland, coming back. But they have a lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, the defense let them down in a few games. That they had to be perfect on the offensive side of the ball, but they've got everybody coming back from that team, and I think they're going to be competing for the district championship. But Frisco Lone Star, they look like the real deal again. They've got a lot of talent coming back, and they've got a lot of talented freshmen that a lot of people aren't talking about. I saw our guy Greg Powers from Dave Campbell. He did a write up on some of these 2026 players, and they've got a couple of very special freshmen, tight end named Ryder Mix, and a quarterback named Legend Bay, who is coming in. He's probably not going to be quarterback a lot this year, but he will be the quarterback of the future. So Lone Star is fully stocked, ready to go for the next couple of years. But Colin Blackstock is expected to take over and get some good quality playing time. We saw all kinds of manner of people playing quarterback last year for Frisco Lone Star. They had to go 3-4 deep at times in their quarterback room. Davian Grosse is a very talented running back that he's going to be in there, getting a chance to play as a sophomore. He got to play as a freshman and did decent things, as we talked about. That they had to bring everybody up last year with all their injury bugs. So I think Lone Star is going to be the default number one. I like Wakeland at number two, but when you go from there, it is wide open from there. I think you can make arguments for 5 or 6 teams to be in those bottom two positions for the playoffs. And we'll talk about them here in a little bit, but I think that Frisco Heritage and Sherman are going to be my 2 teams. But Frisco Centennial, and Frisco Reedy all are going to probably be listening to this podcast and thinking that I'm being very disrespectful at the mouth, Ward. So get ready for some complaints headed your way after this campfire gets released.
I have the phone lines open for calls. Caller, you say what? We got. Let's talk about Frisco Reedy, because we talked off camera about, man, they had 2-3 games where they had everything fall into place to pull off some miraculous wins and get through the district unscathed. But you're saying they may run into some troubled waters this year.
I mean, they graduated just about everybody. They have a very talented offensive line coming back. Max Anderson is kind of the leader of that offensive line. They've got a talented wide receiver and Josiah Fuchsa coming back. But after that, you got to replace a quarterback. You got to replace a running back. You got to replace 2 very talented, punt returners and wide receivers. And how are you going to replace that kind of, that offensive efficiency? I don't know if just having a good offensive line in this district is enough. You remember Frisco Liberty just 2 years ago beating Lovejoy in that really crazy game in on TV and all kinds of stuff. And then last year they fall off the face of the earth once they lose a couple of transfer players. And now, they're at the bottom of the district. So, in Frisco ISD, you're just 1 or 2 transfers away from being at the top being the top dog to the bottom of the barrel. And I think with Frisco Reedy, we're going to see that this year. A very talented team that goes 2-3 deep last year. This year, I don't think they're even going to make the playoffs.
What about Frisco High and Heritage? Those are the two teams that are battling out for that last spot last year. Talk about those two teams and where you think they may fit into this scenario.
Well, we had a chance to see, if you remember that Frisco Heritage and Frisco game where everybody was fighting and,
Yeah.
and you had about half the team suspended. So we got to see Frisco Heritage with some very young players. Cameron Lomax got some experience last year. Jacob McDonald got some experience last year. And they have a very talented defensive end, and Obi Udom coming back, and Nick Clark, a very talented running back. Who should be there as well for Frisco Heritage. These are players that I think are kinds of pillars that are going to help them make the playoffs this year. Frisco had the offensive returner of the year in Cam Pendergraph last year, and they have Cameron Gibson coming back. But these are young kids who are sophomores last year, who are now going to be juniors. And usually over the last couple of years, Frisco has really prided themselves on having a good offensive line. They graduate just about everybody on the offensive line. If you took those two players and maybe put them behind Frisco Reedy's offensive line, you might have the kind of all-star team that you're looking at to make a playoff run. But I think both of these teams are going to be with Frisco and Frisco Reedy are going to be outside looking in, because the team I am saying I'm going to promote and watch out for, the Sherman Bearcats. They are a team that they beat Frisco Heritage last year. I mean, they're a team. They beat Frisco Wakeland last year. They're a team that was being competitive in big situations, and they return a lot of players. They've got a very talented running back, linebacker who plays both sides of the ball and was all district on both sides of the ball. And Kane Bowen coming back. They've got a lot of This is a team that we kind of expect to go up to 6A next year. So this is kind of their last chance to get some of the success. They've got a lot of the Allen holdovers who went up there and are now taking over the coaching position. I think we're going to see year 3 of that really start to pay off. I think Sherman is finally going to make the playoffs and be a factor in this district.
It's good because that's a fun stadium to get to. We don't get to it that often, but you drive by it all the time on the highway. It's just sitting right there. You kind of want to pull off and kind of peek around, see what's going on over there. But there's 3 teams you didn't talk about, although you did talk about Liberty a little bit. But talk a little bit more about Centennial and Lebanon Trail, and maybe how they may stack up in this 6-5A.
I think Centennial has a really good chance. There's always that one team in Frisco ISD that jumps up, and it's a team that you're not expecting. And really digging into Frisco Centennial, they've got so many players coming back. They've got their quarterback, Jace Patton, Harry Stewart, a very talented running back coming back. Brett Eskildson was an all-district, first-team all-district wide receiver. When you got the triplets coming back, they have a very talented linebacker in Tyler Hartley. This is a team that I think has a chance to, compete with Sherman for that number 4 spot, and maybe even with a Frisco Heritage up to number 3. I can't give them the credit because they've been so down for so many years. But if there's one team you want to keep an eye on that didn't make the playoffs the last couple of years, keep an eye on those Titans. But in Frisco Centennial, Frisco Lebanon Trail brings their quarterback back. So you got Zach Hare. They can put up points, but can they stop anybody? That's going to be a big question. I think they're going to be at the bottom of the district. And with Frisco Liberty, they're a bit unproven. They're going to have Jacob Nickel and Marion Porter as players to kind of keep an eye on. But I think they're going to be at the bottom of the district with Frisco Lebanon Trail. But Frisco Centennial, I think, has a good case to make the playoffs. Frisco and Frisco Reedy are all really good candidates to challenge Sherman for that 4th playoff spot in this district.
It's going to be another wild year in this district, and the bad luck for Heritage and Lone Star last year was having all those injuries. But once you battle through them, now all these guys that you had to play got experience for the following year. So you got a little bit of bonus coming into 2023. All right, Diggsy, let me hear what you got 1 through 9.
1 through 9, you got Frisco Lone Star number 1, Frisco Wakeland number 2, Frisco Heritage number 3, Sherman 4, Frisco 5, Frisco Centennial 6, Frisco Reedy 7. I know it's not going to be a very popular pick for your hotline. Frisco Lebanon Trail number 8, and Frisco Liberty number 10.
Yeah, Reedy fans are not going to want to hear that. I'm going to get the phone calls. I'm ready. I'm standing by. But that's what you're all about, Diggs. Stirring up the pot, letting people know what's going on well ahead of time so they're prepared and they're not shocked by anything.